Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Well, this is the last morning that we're going to hear this wonderful darshan of Akrura. So listen carefully, and maybe it'll become a favorite passage for you to read from time to time in Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's Canto 3, Chapter 38, starting with text 23, I think. No, 28 through 33. 28 through 33. Akrura then saw Krishna and Balaram in the village of Vraja going to milk the cows. Krishna wore yellow garments, Balaram blue, and their eyes resembled autumnal lotuses. One of those two mighty armed youths, the shelters, both of them, are the shelters of the goddess of fortune, had a dark blue complexion, and the other's was white. With their fine-featured faces, they were the most beautiful of all persons, as they walked with the gait of young elephants, glancing about with compassionate smiles. Those two exalted personalities beautified the cow pasture with the impressions of their feet, which bore the marks of the flag, lightning bolt, elephant goad, and lotus. The two lords, whose pastimes are most magnanimous and attractive, were ornamented with jeweled necklaces and flower garlands, anointed with auspicious fragrant substances, freshly bathed and dressed in spotless, here's that word again, raiment, garments. They were, both of them, the primeval supreme personalities, the masters and original causes of the universes, who had for the welfare of the earth now descended in their distinct forms of Keshava and Balaram. Oh, King Parikshit, they resembled two gold-bedecked mountains, one of emerald and the other of silver, as with their effulgence they dispelled the sky's darkness in all directions, because it was just beginning nightfall. So we're going to read a section very similar to what we heard yesterday from Krishna's birth pastime, where it's Krishna addressing Mother Jasoda, Krishna addressing Yogamaya, etc. So this is from our dear Jiva Goswami once again, and the reference is from Gopal Champu, Chapter 3, Krishna's birth. So the context of Gopal Champu is, during the 2 months that Krishna returned to Braja, after killing Dantavakra and all the other demons, in his cowherd boy attire, he entered Braja and spent 2 months. And each day, 2 disciples of Narada Muni were invited to speak about Krishna's pastimes during his childhood. Now he's no longer a child. He's his grandfather. But he's, young in his appearance, like a 16-year-old boy. And then there's 2 narrators. They're introduced at the beginning of Gopal Champu. They're introduced as disciples of Narada Muni. And their names are Madhu Kanta and Snigdha Kanta. And each morning they gather at Nanda Maharaj's um home or palace or residence, and the Brijbasis, they're assembled and they're hearing from Snigdhakanta and Madhukanta. So in this particular section, it's Snigdhakanta recalling the pastime of Krishna's birth. So what Snigdhakanta thought internally was true. That is explained. The Lord speaks to Maya. That's Yogamaya, right? Oh, all auspicious Yogamaya. This is a translation from 10.2.9. Krishna is addressing Yogamaya. Oh, all auspicious Yogamaya, I shall then appear with my full 6 opulences, Angsha Bhagena, as the son of Devaki, and you will appear as the daughter of Mother Yashoda, the queen of Maharaj Nanda. Now the emphasis is going to go to connect with this morning verse, the one we just read, chapter 38, 28 through 33. It's the focus is going on this word Angsha Bhagena. That means one thing in this context and another thing in a different context. Angsha, what means what? Part. Bhagena. Bhaga. So, yet, Brahma speaks to the Devatas, Canto 10, Chapter 1. Brahma speaks to the Devatas, the potency of the Lord, known as Vishnumaya, who is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will also appear with Lord Krishna. This potency, acting in different capacities, captivates all the worlds, both material and spiritual. At the request of her master, she will appear with her different potencies in order to execute the work of the Lord. Karyarte, execute the work of the Lord. Karya means to do something. Arte, to fulfill that. That's the purpose of the Lord. Commentary. The word Angshabhagena, when Krishna is speaking to Yogamaya, the word Angshabhagena means the forearm form. Karyarte means that she, Yogamaya, will execute the work of the Lord by bewildering Yashoda and others, by appearing in this world with his expanded form, which would merge with his two-armed form. The son of Devaki is the four-arm form, and he's going to merge into the two-arm form, son of Yashoda. And other places in the Bhagavatam also, the wise give this explanation. That's from our verses, chapter 38. Quote, they, Krishna Balaram, were the primeval supreme personalities, the masters and original causes of the universes, who had, for the welfare of the earth, now descended as Keshava and Balaram, along with their expansions. Svangshena. Svangshena means with different forms. That's one reference from Gopal Champu. Now here comes another from that same section, the birth of Krishna. In his heart, Snigdhakanta thought, in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.9, Lord Krishna said to Yogamaya, quote, oh, all auspicious Yogamaya, I shall appear with my full 6 opulences as the son of Devaki, and you will appear as the daughter of Mother Yashoda, the queen of Maharaj Nanda. However, the demigod Brahma said to the demigods, 1.2.25, quote, the property of the Lord, known as Vishnu Maya, who is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will also appear with Lord Krishna. This potency, acting in different capacities, captivates all the worlds, both material and spiritual, at the request of her master. She will appear with her different potencies in order to execute the work of the Lord. So Snigdhakanta is contemplating how to reconcile what seems like maybe contradiction. In the first of these quotes, he's contemplating. Lord Krishna uses the word angshabhagena in the sense, quote, accompanied by my four-handed Narayan form. In the second of these quotes, the demigod Brahma uses the word karyarte to execute the work of the Lord, to mean, quote, to attract the people of the world with his charming features. That's Yogamaya. The sages who know the truth of Lord Krishna give this explanation. That's Akrura, spoken in this chapter 38. That is, quote, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna and Balaram, appeared personally for the welfare of his creation. Here the word angshabhagena means accompanied by his various forms. What was all that about? It's not to bewilder us, it's to help us understand more precisely when terms are used. It takes our great acharyas to enlighten us. In this case, the term means this. In that case, the term means that. Just like the word Atma, we know it can mean body, mind, and soul. It can mean any one of them. It can mean all three of them. Even in some cases, Atma means the Supreme Soul. But the Supreme Soul is the source of all Atmas. So it is context sensitive. And we need our acharyas to illumine. In this context, angshabhagena means, and in that context, angshabhagena means accompanied by his various forms. So Jiva Goswami, through Gopal Champu, is having this narrator, Snigdhakanta, reflect on this understanding within the Bhagavatam, and he's the narrator of what Snigdhakanta is saying is saying the Snigdhakanta's reflections are right. It's Jiva Goswami confirming these contemplations are right. This means angshabhagena is context specific. So now we're going to go on to Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Most of you don't. Anybody here not know what is Brihat Bhagavatamrita? Everybody knows. Okay, good. This is a section where Narada has reached Dwarka. And he's searching for who is the greatest recipient of the mercy of the Supreme Lord. When he reaches Dwarka, there's a lot of interesting topics discussed. And this particular one that's being highlighted, it makes reference to our chapter 38, canto 10. But the speaker is Padmavati. In this case, Padmavati is the wife of Ugrasena. And the detail is, it's not mentioned here, when Ugrasena was married to Padmavati, she was not yet familiar with Ugrasena, and a demon appeared looking like Ugrasena and produced a child with Padmavati, and that child was Kamsa. So Kamsa is the son of Ugrasena, but Ugrasena wasn't really the father. Padmavati was the mother, and a demon was the father. But the child was accepted as the son of Ugrasena, and Kamsa did what Kamsa did. So Padmavati, for whatever the reason, is known to be something like a madwoman. She has a royal position because she's the wife of Ugrasena, but she's a little mad, and she says, very strange things sometimes. So in this particular reference, she's making the argument that Nanda Maharaj should pay Krishna for his so many years of taking care of Nanda Maharaj's cows. Fathers don't pay their sons for sharing some common activity of a family livelihood. But she's taking that position and saying, essentially, I'm going to, Padmavati, I'm going to go to the chief priest of the Yadu dynasty, Gargamuni, ask Gargamuni to carefully calculate how many hours and what's a fair compensation for Krishna's work, and instruct my husband to insist that Nanda Maharaj pays Krishna for his slave labor, or something like that. So that's the context of what she's saying. It's just like, and Krishna's right there, hearing Padmavati go off like this. So the whole royal family is there. So Padmavati, so Krishna is in this position of missing, feeling separation from Vrindavan. He's in Dwarka, and Krishna loves the Brijvasis as the Brijvasi loves Krishna, and he's feeling beside himself with grief and feelings of separation. And Padmavati is saying, Krishna, why are you feeling these feelings? So, Krishna, why should you lament? Just listen to my advice. While living 11 years in the home of Nandagopa, you two brothers enjoyed various comforts. For that, I swear, my husband will repay Nanda twice over. My husband will see to it that Gargamuni calculates the amount to the smallest fraction and delivers it by his own hand. And if Nanda owes you payment for tending his cows, let him pay you or not as he wishes. Strange. And Sanatana Goswami commentary reads, for 11 years, Ugrasena's grandson Krishna lived and enjoyed in the house of Nanda Maharaj. Krishna might not take seriously Padmavati's idea to reimburse Nanda Maharaj and satisfy him with money, but even if Krishna becomes amused by it, her purpose of changing Krishna's mood will be achieved, because he was absorbed in feelings of separation. It's very sad. So she's changing the mood. She reminds Krishna that her husband, Ugrasena, is very generous and will not hesitate to pay twice whatever might be owed. And even if Nanda fails to remunerate Krishna and Balaram for their cow tending, that is a small concern. In settling the accounts, Nanda may not want to accept anything extra from Ugrasena, and that will be all the better. So, there is no need to annoy Nanda Maharaj over the small amount for the salaries of Krishna and Balaram. Gargamuni is the best person to calculate the payment because he is an excellent astrologer, accustomed to making careful mathematical reckonings of configurations of planets. Moreover, though not saying so, Padmavati thinks that if the scrupulous Garga decides the amount to pay and delivers it himself, the cowherds will not get more than they deserve. Since Nanda is only a cowherd, he is not used to having much wealth other than his stock of milk products. The expenses for the two brothers should be repaid, but not those of Rohini and the maidservants who had stayed with her in Braja, because she insulted Padmavati by ignoring her previous comments. So previously, Padmavati went off in some nutty direction. Rohini didn't even acknowledge what she said. She just went on with something else. So she's now getting back at her. Padmavati is correct in figuring the duration of Krishna's stay in Braja as 11 years. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 26 confirms that this is Uddhava 3.2.26. Tato Nanda Prajam Itaha Pitra Kangshad Bibhabyata Ekadasa Samastatra Gadharchi Sa Balo Vasat. Translation. Thereafter, this is Uddhava speaking, fearing Kamsa, Krishna's father brought Krishna to the cow pasture of Maharaj Nanda, and there Krishna lived for 11 years, like a covered flame, with his elder brother Baladev. So that statement is referred to over and over again to mark the age of Krishna, but we're going to hear there are other messages in the scripture that say something a little different, but that's the one primarily accepted because of Uddhava's exalted, wise, well-informed, dear to Krishna position. So Sanatana Goswami goes on. This statement by Uddhava does not imply that after 11 years of living in Braja incognito, Krishna and Balaram came out of hiding and continued living in Braja for several years more. After all, when Akrura came to take the two brothers away from Gokula, he saw that they were in the Kaishora age. That is, they were young adolescents. And then comes the Sanskrit for these verses that we've been seeing or hearing. So it's, the chapter 38, text 28 to 33. Dadarsha Krishnam Ramam cha Brajego Dohanam Gatau Pita Nilambara Darao Sharad Ambu Rajekshanao Krishna Kishorao, there it is, Kishorao Shamala Sveitao Shri Niketam Brahad Bhujao. Translation. Keyword there is Kishora. He saw Krishna and Balaram in the village of Braja going to milk the cows. Krishna wore yellow garments, Balaram blue, and their eyes resembled autumnal lotuses. The two shelters of the goddess of fortune were in their Kaishora age. One of them with dark blue complexion, the other white. So Kaishora age ends at 11. So they were still 11. There's some other details. Again, when the two lords arrived in Mathura and entered Kamsa's arena to join the wrestling competition, the women of the city described them as Kaishora, or adolescents. Here's the verse from 1044, 8. Ka Vraja Sara Sarvangan Malau Shailendra Sanibhau Ka Chati Sukha Sukamaranagao Kishorao Napta Yovanao. So the translation reads, the two professional wrestlers have limbs as strong as lightning bolts, Vajra Sara, and bodies resembling mighty mountains. What comparison can there be between those wrestlers and these two young, immature boys with exceedingly tender limbs? Again, the ladies are saying they're in their Kaishore period. Sanatana Goswami goes on, it is generally understood that the Kaishora period of youth begins in one's 11th year. That's like most boys. And then, this is important because this is discussed elsewhere, when, I've been asked a question, why Krishna didn't receive Gayatri when he was in Braja. It wasn't until he reached Mathura. Because Vaishya boys also receive Gayatri. There's Dvija, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. So he was in a Vaishya family. Why didn't he get, there was a the son of Gargamuni was the chief priest of Nanda Maharaja's cowherd community. Bhaguri Muni. Bhaguri Muni is the one that was doing the yagya when Krishna did the tax pastime, stopping the gopis from taking items to the yagya that was being performed by Bhaguri Muni under the direction of Nanda Maharaj for the benefit of all the Brijbasis. Bhaguri Muni could have given him, but Kshatriya's boys receive at 11, at the end of the 11th year before they move into 12th year. That's tradition. Here's what it says. According to Vedic injunctions, Kshatriyas in particular are supposed to receive their sacred thread initiation in the 11th year. And so it was that Krishna and Balaram took initiation at that age, right after killing Kamsa. So that's the junction of the 11th and 12th year. Confirmed. Krishna was 11. In the arena after Kamsa's death, Krishna told Sri Vasudeva and Devaki, Nasmato yuvayostata nityo kankti tayor api balya poganda kaishoraha putrabhyam abhavat kvachit. Translation: because of us, your two sons, you always remained in anxiety and could never enjoy our childhood, boyhood, and youth. Although Krishna and Balaram had just entered the Kaishore age, the supreme heroic prowess they were showing in Mathura covered the natural charm of their youth. In other words, they appeared to be older because their prowess. Thus, Vasudeva and Devaki were not able to experience the sweetness of the boys in their adolescence. In other words, although Krishna's beauty is described as being that of a full-grown youth, this does not mean that he had passed beyond the Kaishore age. But here comes a contradiction. As an alternative explanation of Krishna's statements to his parents, we could accept that when Krishna and Balaram came to Mathura, they were actually at the end of the Kaishore age, that is, in their 15th year. The poetry of Sri Bilvamangala Thakur gives evidence that in some of the later pastimes before leaving Vrindavan, Krishna had manifested symptoms of full-grown youth and even acted as an adult. A child may act like an adult by displaying some special strength or skill. The 15th year is especially attractive because at that age, the body reaches adulthood at its peak of youthful beauty. But because Krishna was supremely gentle by nature, his 15th year seemed like the beginning of his Kaishore period, and his period of debt, back to Padmavati, that his period of debt for enjoying Nanda Maharaja's milk products is still calculated as only 11 years, since for the first 4 years he was an infant sucking his mother's breast. That's Sanatana Goswami way of factoring in what Bilvamangala Thakur says. Final paragraph for this morning. In this way, we can reconcile the contradictions that seem to appear among various statements, some saying he was a new adolescent and others a full-grown youth. This factoring in Bilvamangala Thakur's statement is not at all common in our acharyas. Our acharyas like to stick with the number of 11 years, or even more specifically, 11 years, 8 months. So his Kshatriya initiation took place during his 11th year, and quickly thereafter he moves into his 12th year, where he goes to Sandipani Muni school. That's commonly what our acharyas say. But that's the end of this little meditation on Akrura seeing Krishna in the pasturing ground. And then comes the exchanges between Krishna, Balaram, and Akrura that are precisely according to the desire of Akrura. Krishna's Yayatamam Prapadyante Tangs Tadaiva Bhajamyaham. He's a pure devotee. It's not like, we're not pure devotees. So whatever we desire, because we desire, it's going to happen because we're devotees. Not quite like that. But Krishna is omniscient. We discussed the other morning how he showed the spiritual world to the elders of Braja because they just were curious. And he decided. So anything that Krishna does is, he's not bound, he's free. And if he has the volition, one can see him in a moment or not see him. And, if Krishna is kind, why doesn't he show us? Well, he's kind, but there may be other reasons besides he's not kind why he doesn't show himself to us. We have to become qualified and show our eagerness to be in his presence, because that's very special. Otherwise we may, who knows, be negligent or make some offense or something, just like chanting. The last verse of chapter 6 Bhagavad Gita, that Yogi Nama Pisarve Sham verse, Madgaten Antaratmana, it's describing It can be taken to describe those who are practicing Ashtanga Yoga. The best of them are those who antaratmana, madgatain antaratmana. They see the form of the Lord, they meditate, they fix their mind on the form of Vishnu with their mind not going to anything else. Samadhi. But then there's Shraddhavan Bhajate Yomam. They engage in devotional service. It's a little bit like, very similar to the teaching of Kapila Dev. The teaching of Kapila Dev is Sankhya philosophy. But he appears during Satya Yuga, and the means of achieving perfection in Satya Yuga is meditation. So he begins by describing meditation. Meditation on what? Vishnu. And then what? Meditation upon Vishnu, then engage in devotional service. That's the last verse of chapter 6, Bhagavad Gita, in a nutshell. And then expanded in his Sankhya teachings, his teachings to Devahuti. But then following that with Arjuna saying, "Oh, impossible for me. I can't do that process." So Krishna gives the bhakti process in a different form, but with the same essence. Fixing the mind upon Krishna. Maya sakta manak partha. With attachment, mana, asakti, with the mind attached to Mayi, to Krishna. So that's what we're given, the bhakti process. That's that one. The principle is presented. Madgatain antaratmana. Same, with fixing the mind upon the Supreme within. So when we're doing our chanting, seeing the form of Vishnu and seeing the form of Krishna, without the mind deviating to something else, is the same as the mind. Listen, it's the same as the mind being absorbed in the sound of Krishna's name, because the sound of Krishna's name is Krishna's form, or Krishna's form is the sound of Krishna's name. So our approach for this age, to fulfill that instruction of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, which is for all time, but is spoken to restore Dharma at the end of the previous yuga, preparing for us the teachings for Kali Yuga, the chanting of the holy name by the sound. Touch, renew. Hear from me how this can be accomplished. So we're getting this in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the graduate study of the Bhagavad Gita's teaching. And Akrura's he's a role-setting personality. And he's a natural bhakta, but we hear that he heard about Krishna from Narada. Narada is carrying bhakti seeds, and he distributes those bhakti seeds to different bhaktas, like he did with Rukmini. He told Rukmini about Krishna. That's how Rukmini knew about Krishna. Narada visited. That's all it took. And she gave her heart to Krishna. And Akrura heard about Krishna from Narada. And that's all it took. It was fertile soil to plant the seed, but his expectation of meeting Krishna was over the top. And so these, as we were hearing in chapter 13, at the end of 12 and 13, these sound vibrations have such potency to attract the mind. Our mind is a little wavering, but it has the potency to attract the mind away from distraction and to the position of absorption. Madashraya, taking shelter of Krishna. Mai chananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini. Just by the hearing process can take us to that position. And so we're sadhakas. We're unsteady sadhakas. We're very familiar with the unsteady stage and not so familiar with the steady stage. But by practice and practice, diligent, again with the right sankalpa, with the right intention, restoring that relationship by the means provided, given by Krishna in principle in Bhagavad Gita, displayed to us by Akrura in this chapter, and hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing, and gradually, because there's worldly life that captures our attention all the time, to gradually bring our attention to, even while doing worldly things, bring our attention to Krishna and our relationship with Krishna. That's our human mission. It's not advised for us, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, or Lord Chaitanya's acceptance, Brahma's prayer, Sthane statakshuti-katam tanavan manobhir. Stay in your position and give up this effort of mental speculation. Instead, take to the process of hearing. That's what the verse says. And by that process of hearing, the mind can be conquered, and when the mind is conquered, ajita can be conquered. When we come to that stage of attachment to Krishna, maya sakta manakparta, when we come to that position, Krishna gives himself to us. We don't have to achieve something. It's not something material. It's not a material undertaking. Do well in school, do well in your job, do well in, competing, and it's not that kind of thing at all. It's a relationship with Krishna thing. That's the bhakti process, and we're somehow fortunate to be engaged in it. Struggling, but somehow very fortunate to be engaged in it. And despite our shortcomings, the process is very powerful and very effective. So we're looking forward to continue what happens next in this big adventure with Akrura and Krishna and Balaram. So let's see if there's some discussion. Any thoughts, anybody?
Guru Maharaj, while hearing, it's randomly hearing now is will that helpful, or how important it is to hear systematically?
Both are good. At some point, even from hearing randomly, will awaken the desire, I want to hear systematically. But even when you're hearing systematically, there may be some, randomly going on at the same time. Systematically is nice, randomly is nice. They both have their place. Systematically, we will want to do that at some stage. I mean, for example, because it was Dussehra and coming up as Diwali, in the midst of all this Krishna in Vrindavan's pastimes comes Ram's Lila. So how systematic is that? But this doesn't, one doesn't detract from the other, it augments. That's my experience.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, in my effort to hear to the sound vibration in chanting the holy name, my chanting has become so time consuming. Like in the beginning days, I used to chant within 2 hours. Now it's taking 3 hours plus. I'm struggling so much. I don't know how I can, because of that, I'm not able to read scriptures and do other things that I want to do. So I'm really struggling. I need mercy.
Some thoughts in response to what you're saying. What's the quality of the rounds that when you were chanting in 2 hours compared to the quality of the rounds where now it's taking you 3 hours plus? So what's important? That's one thought. Another thought is one of the devotees from Houston temple shared with me that Sham Sundar, former temple president, he's now moved on and appointed someone else as the president. But he's during the Purushottam month, he was making a vow to chant 64 rounds a day and up to 100 plus. So he, to do that, had to chant swiftly. So he's been conducting a morning session with the devotees. You might want to, after I leave, it's something you have tune into, because he's into having them chant swiftly, saying and convincing them, because he's convinced that by chanting swiftly, it'll help you concentrate. My guess is it's, less than 7 minutes per round. That's my guess. And they have, japa, not just a little pep talk at the beginning and then just chanting japa. So some of the devotees at least are finding it's helping their concentration. My reply to this devotee is there are other methods that can help concentration and hear the holy name. So whatever works, but don't think that this is it and something else isn't it. It's whatever works. So you might want to find out about that call and join the call and see if you could ramp up the speed of your chanting. But the goal is not speed, the goal is attentiveness. And so that you have time for reading, you may need to ramp up the speed, provided it's attentive. And there's a resource that might help you. Shamsundar Houston Temple. My guess is that those that are applying this method will find that after the passage of time, that effort of attentiveness chanting swiftly will fade into chanting swiftly without attentiveness. Yes, so in other words, the emphasis is attentiveness. And attentiveness comes about because of wanting attentiveness. And, Krishna reciprocating. The emphasis of attentiveness, scripturally and practically, is hearing. Then the mind is captured, you have attentiveness. If you have attentive chanting, you're doing well, whether it's swiftly or not. Okay. Anyone else? Up front here.
Krishna Guru Maharaj. When I'm reading or hearing, if I'm in the mood of like I want to take some application from this, if I'm in that mood, I could able to hear attentively, but more after some time that goes away, and again it becomes mechanical. The hearing process.
This is the question that was asked 3 times last night. Did you attend to the class? It's the same question. So that, that's what to do.
It means, yeah, how
Now, that's the question. So you heard the answer last night. It's bhakti. You cultivate bhakti. Bhakti is, Prabhupada writes, it's the same answer as last night. Bhakti is a sort of cultivation. So when you recognize the mind has gone into this mechanical space, you bring it back. And what's going to bring it back? What's the intention that brings it back and keeps it? That's bhakti.
So yeah, my struggle is only limited time. So
I got it. Same question last night, 3 times. You heard the question.
Yeah,
you were there. Same. It's unsteady bhakti. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the Madhurya Kandamini section, pass it on to Shankadari. He can circulate it to the people that asked those questions last night, and you, and whoever else wants it. And there's recordings on that topic. It's, it's all of us in the room could say the same thing. Just by flagging it, it's something that we all experience. So then what to do? I mean, it's a stage of bhakti, unsteady to become steady. The obstacle is anarthas. There's a whole other eradication of anarthas. It's a whole other seminar series you can ask Bangsidhari for. And so, it's just part of the immature stage of bhakti where it's unsteady. And, recognizing it is important. And then the what to do is it's not 3 times. It's not the information is being withheld what to do. The problem is we don't apply ourselves, or there's layers of conditioning. The contamination influence is such that it's not just a matter of volition. I want to get on the other side of this unsteadiness, and presto, you're on the other side of unsteadiness. It's a cultivation. It takes eradication of anarthas, of long-standing tendencies to be attracted to the temporary and not attracted to the eternal. That's our material circumstance. Nasate vijite bhavo, na bhavo vijite sataha. The Tattvadarshis understand that, so we can theoretically understand that, but we're caught in our conditioning. So keep moving towards light. Tamasima jyotirgama. Go keep moving towards light. That takes faith. It takes perseverance. It takes bhakti. Keep working on it. Cultivation. Bhakti is a sort of cultivation. Okay? Anything else? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.